One overcast afternoon, Marcus returned home to find a terse letter slipped silently under his apartment door. Its tone was threatening, mocking the incident and dismissing his efforts as naive. Thinly veiled hostility seeped from the carefully chosen words, a chilling reminder that change often invited backlash. Marcus's fingers tightened around the letter as he read it, but his resolve did not waver. He reported the threat to authorities and redoubled his outreach efforts. Yet, the tension was tangible, a heavy fog settling over meetings and public forums. Sessions intended for dialogue sometimes erupted in shouting matches, voices raised in anger and pain. Media coverage fractured the city's narrative, polarized, sensationalized. Social media churned with heated debates, some constructive, others destructive. The strain weighed heavily on Marcus, the burden of expectation pressing relentlessly. Exhaustion crept at the edges of his willpower, whispering doubts in quiet moments. Ghosts of past injustices whispered in his mind, and the fear of failure loomed large like a storm cloud. Still, he pressed onward, drawing strength from letters of encouragement, from veterans who saw in him the courage of generations past, from students inspired by his example, from neighbors who greeted him with renewed hope. The path was riddled with obstacles, but Marcus's resolve hardened like tempered steel. He understood that true progress demanded persistence amid adversity. Amid the turmoil and uncertainty, unexpected alliances began to emerge. One humid evening, Marcus was approached by Officer Daniel Harper, the younger of the two officers involved in the incident. Daniel's gait was hesitant, his face etched with guilt and confusion as he extended a tentative hand. Their first conversation was raw and honest, marked by silence as much as speech. Daniel confessed his fears, the lack of adequate training in handling situations involving people like Marcus, his own struggles with preconceived notions shaped by years of institutional bias. Marcus listened intently, recognizing beneath the uniform a shared humanity, a man caught between the demands of duty and the need for growth. Together, they began work on a training program designed to foster empathy and cultural awareness within the police force, a program grounded not just in policy but in personal stories and lived experience. Daniel became an advocate for change from within, bridging gaps that dialogue alone could not close. Marcus also forged connections with community leaders like Reverend Grace Thompson, whose church had long been a sanctuary for those seeking justice and peace. Their partnership infused neighborhood initiatives and public forums with renewed energy and compassion. Through these relationships, Marcus discovered a wellspring of hope. The fire of conflict, though fierce and consuming, had forged bonds that transcended fear and suspicion. Though trust remained fragile, it began to take root in the fertile soil of shared commitment. One rainy afternoon, Marcus found himself alone in the park near Marion Square. The steady drizzle blurred the edges of the world, softening the sharp lines of buildings and trees. The scent of wet earth rose richly from the ground, mingling with the faint perfume of damp magnolia blossoms. He sat on a weathered bench, the cool wood soaking through his jacket as the rain soaked the fabric, the weight of the past weeks pressing down on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. Reaching into his satchel, he pulled out an old letter from his grandfather, the ink faded but the words vivid, etched in flowing script. The letter spoke of courage, not as the absence of fear but the triumph over it. It reminded Marcus that true leadership was not merely about command and control, but about vulnerability and connection, about facing the storm with an open heart. In that quiet moment, clarity emerged like dawn breaking through the clouds. Marcus realized his true battle was not against any one enemy, but against the divisions fracturing his city and his own heart. The incident was but a catalyst, a spark igniting a broader, deeper movement. The work ahead required more than policy, it required healing. He rose, the rain soaking through his jacket and hair, beads of water tracing rivulets down his brow. Yet renewed determination sparked in his eyes, fierce and unwavering. The path would be long and fraught, but he embraced it fully, ready to lead with both strength and compassion. Charleston's annual Independence Day parade was meant to be a celebration of unity and shared history. Yet beneath the festive banners and bursts of fireworks, tensions simmered like embers beneath ash. Marcus had spent weeks preparing, organizing joint police community patrols, coordinating outreach programs, and fostering collaboration to ensure the event remained peaceful. As the parade wound through the streets, the air thick with the scent of barbecue and the sound of marching bands, a sudden disturbance erupted near a crowded street corner. A misunderstanding between a group of teenagers and police officers escalated swiftly, voices rising, fists clenched, and tempers flaring. Marcus rushed to the scene, his commanding presence cutting through the chaos like a lighthouse beam. His deep voice rang out, steady and authoritative. "Let's take a step back, everyone. We're here to celebrate together." The crowd hesitated, the tension momentarily breaking as people glanced at one another. Slowly, the angry shouts gave way to murmurs, and the crowd began to disperse, the immediate crisis diffused by Marcus's calm intervention. Later, in a quiet room backstage, Marcus sat alone, the distant sounds of celebration filtering through the walls. He confronted his own doubts and fears, the fragility of progress starkly clear. This turning point crystallized the stakes, not just for the city, but for his mission. The path to change demanded constant vigilance and courage, even in moments of apparent harmony. In the weeks following the parade, Marcus's initiatives began to bear fruit. Police officers attended empathy workshops, their expressions softening as they engaged with new perspectives. Community members participated eagerly in open dialogues, sharing stories and listening intently. Trust grew in small but meaningful ways. Handshakes replaced suspicion, conversations replaced silence. Local media highlighted these successes with cautious optimism, painting a hopeful picture of a city slowly healing. Marcus received heartfelt letters, from parents grateful for safer streets, from officers inspired to embrace progressive approaches, from students emboldened to raise their voices. Yet the ripple effect extended far beyond Charleston's borders. News of the incident and Marcus's response reached national platforms, sparking conversations about race, authority, and justice across the country. Navigating this newfound spotlight with humility, Marcus consistently redirected attention to the community's resilience. He felt the weight of responsibility keenly but remained grounded in his purpose, a steady beacon amid turbulent waters. Challenges persisted, old prejudices lingered like stubborn stains, and progress was often met with setbacks. But Marcus's journey was no longer solitary. He had allies, a movement, and a vision for a better future. Months passed, and a formal hearing was scheduled to review the police officer's conduct during the incident. Marcus knew this moment would test everything he and the community had worked tirelessly to build. He spent long nights poring over documents, consulting with legal experts, and meticulously preparing his testimony. The weight of expectation pressed heavily on him. This was more than a legal proceeding. It was a symbolic confrontation with the city's unresolved tensions. Marcus also prepared emotionally. He sought solace in the company of his family and close friends, drawing strength from their unwavering support. The letters from his grandfather remained a constant companion, their words a steady beacon reminding him of courage and perseverance. In the days leading up to the hearing, Charleston seemed to hold its breath. Marcus walked the streets with quiet determination, the magnolia blossoms still blooming despite the gathering storm clouds above, a fragile symbol of hope amidst uncertainty. The courthouse was packed, the air thick with anticipation and the mingled scents of polished wood and aged paper. Marcus sat poised on the witness stand, his military bearing commanding respect from all present. The officers involved were there too, their faces a mixture of apprehension and resolve. Community leaders, media representatives, and curious onlookers filled the gallery, their murmurs filling the solemn space. When Marcus took the stand, his voice was steady, clear, and unwavering. He recounted the incident not with anger or bitterness, but with a measured call for accountability and reform. His words painted a vivid portrait of the moment, the injustice, the pain, and the broader implications for the city and the nation. The officers testified in turn, expressing regret and acknowledging their shortcomings. The hearing was tense, punctuated by pointed questions and emotional testimony from all sides. When it concluded, a heavy silence fell over the room. The decision would come later, but the hearing itself was a watershed moment, a public acknowledgement of deeper issues and a step toward healing. Days later, the verdict was announced. The officers received disciplinary actions paired with mandated training and community service. The outcome was met with mixed reactions. Some voiced approval, others voiced disappointment. But Marcus saw it as a beginning rather than an end. In the aftermath, he continued his advocacy with renewed focus, emphasizing sustainable change and systemic reform. New programs were launched, and Charleston slowly began to transform, its streets echoing with cautious hope. Marcus reflected deeply on the journey, the incident that had shaken him to his core, the relationships forged in fire, the obstacles overcome. He understood that change was incremental, requiring patience, resilience, and unwavering commitment. One quiet evening, back in his apartment, he sat at his desk and penned a letter to his grandfather, capturing the story of a city and a man striving to rise above division. The letter was a testament to hope, a legacy of courage passed down through generations, a promise for the future. Spring returned to Charleston in full bloom, painting the city in vibrant greens and the delicate white and pink hues of blossoming magnolias. The harbor shimmered under golden sunlight, its waters sparkling like scattered jewels. The scent of salt mingled with fresh earth and blooming flowers, infusing the air with renewal and possibility. Marcus walked through the renewed streets, greeted by familiar faces and newfound friends alike. The city's rhythm had shifted, still imperfect and uneven, but unmistakably moving toward unity. He paused by Marion Square, where children laughed and played beneath the sprawling limbs of ancient trees. Neighbors gathered on benches exchanging stories and smiles. The park, once a quiet backdrop to tension and unease, now buzzed with life and the promise of community. Marcus's satchel rested comfortably at his side, inside it an old letter, the symbol of enduring hope, a tether to the past and a beacon for the future. He smiled softly, feeling the weight of the past balanced by the promise of what lay ahead. In this new balance, Marcus stood tall, not just as a military officer, but as a beacon of resilience, transformation, and the enduring power of hope. End of narrative. Fine della narrazione.